Welcome to the Two Michaels podcast with your hosts, me, Michael Simkin, and Michael Bloom. Today, we are lucky enough to be here with Dave Harrison, master carpenter and craftsman. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure. My pleasure's all mine.
Well, let's dive straight in and talk about your background. How did you end up doing what you do today?
How did I end up doing it? Well, doing it as a living, I ended up doing it because I arrived in Israel and my wife at the time had a small baby and I needed to make a living, and this is something that I knew to do, and I'd not really ever done it self-employed before, but I decided that's what I was going to do. So I opened a workshop and started making stuff.
Did you have did you learn to be a carpenter somewhere? Or how do you even know how to do these rustic furnitures?
Okay. Well, since I was a kid, I was making stuff, always. As much as I remember myself, I was always building things out of cardboard and sellotape or bits of string and sticks. And that developed in my childhood and built, dens in the woods and go-karts and bombs and rafts and boats and whatever you can imagine. I was building it as a kid. And that's where it all started, really.
And when did you discover that you could walk on water?
What do you mean? What do you mean, Simkin?
I don't know. I've got this idea in my head of Jesus the carpenter,
it's the beard, isn't it?
And you, Dave, who somehow, in a funny sort of way, reminds me of Jesus.
Right. Well, I worked on boats also, like Jesus, in the Sea of Galilee, but I wasn't in the Sea of Galilee. I was in many other seas, but not that one.
Yeah, it's amazing how how we take a hobby and we make it into a profession. So you say you moved to Israel and you decided to make this professionally and charge money for it and make a living from it. But I'm trying to go back to your childhood. Maybe you can give us examples of what stuff did you build and who taught you to do these things, and adventures from being a kid and building stuff. What did you build and how did you use it?
Well, that's 4 questions.
Yes.
What about one?
It's a general direction.
So as a child, like I said, I was building all sorts of stuff. I remember the first project I really built was a skateboard. I had a pair of old roller skates, and I saw on the news, on the TV, my dad was a news addict, always watching the news, and the last little bit of happy news on the news was people in California were starting to use skateboards. And I saw these guys on these skateboards going down hills in California on the TV. I was like, wow, I want one of those. And I'd got this pair of NAF roller skates, which strapped onto your shoes with buckles and stuff. So I dismantled them and nailed the 2 halves onto the bottom of a board of wood and made my first skateboard, which was not very successful because it didn't turn. It just went in a straight line. So then I figured that out and added some bits of rubber underneath all the nails and stuff and managed to get it turning. And so that was one of the first things I built. Now, I didn't know anything and I did it all on my own. My parents were busy and I was in the shed and I just did it. My grandfather, I guess he saw me. He was a cabinet maker. He lived very far away, 5 hours drive away. But when he came to visit one Christmas, he arrived with a saw and a small work table, a folding work table. And he ordered some boards of wood from a local woodyard that all arrived at Christmas. And he started to teach me how to measure, mark, and saw straight, which was amazing for me. I knew he'd been a carpenter and stuff, but he was very old now. And that's about the basic he taught me, but he installed in me the ability to do. Like he gave me the confidence to go ahead with this. He goes, like, that's the basics. Go ahead and build stuff. So he was a big influence, and I started building stuff. And when he passed away, I got some of his tools handed on to me, which some of them actually managed to get to Israel. So I've got some old tools of my grandfather's, which always makes me happy every time I take them out of the cupboard and I give them to students to use, and I use them, and that's really nice.
At what point at what point did you become did you discover your passion for rustic items? I understand you. What is rustic exactly?
Well, first of all, as a kid, I was in the woods a lot. Like, if I wasn't on the beach, I lived close to the coast. I could see the sea from my bedroom window. If I wasn't on the beach in the summer, I was in the woods, or I was down in the valley playing with the river. So all the nature and the natural branches and all the natural shapes of the wood is something that really, I really like it. And I didn't actually make any rustic furniture until I was in Israel. And I was driving through the Pardes one day. The Pardes is like the orange groves. And I saw a pile of logs sitting at the side of the road. And I thought, well, doesn't look like anybody really wants this pile of logs sitting here. And I chucked them in the back of my car and I took them home and started building a table. We needed a table on the balcony outside. So I started building this rustic table with mortise and tenon joinery, with very limited tools like a saw and a chisel and a hammer. And I had this feeling, I've done this before. It was really weird. Like, I was like, wow, I've done this before. I know how to do this. And it all just and I had a brace and bit, an old-fashioned drill like this to drill the holes that I'd bought in a junkyard. And with these really basic tools, I built this really nice coffee table, which unfortunately got eaten by woodworms afterwards because I didn't know anything about woodworms, or the type of wood was actually pecan wood. And they really love it. So the whole table disappeared after a couple of years, but never mind. But
why rustic? So you saw the logs, and why now you only do rustic furniture, and you teach people rustic furniture, and you have old... No?
I don't only do rustic furniture. I do every style of furniture under the sun, to be honest with you. But I do have a passion for rustic furniture. I really love it because you go with the flow more. With traditional carpentry, we make all the boards straight and everything at 90-degree angles, and we make the wood do what we want it to do. But with rustic furniture, you go with the wood, you go with the flow. Like, you want a bent leg, you look for a bent stick. You want a curved piece, you look for a curved piece. You don't bend it, you don't cut it, you don't glue it. You go with it. And this is really, really fun. And every piece is unique, and every piece looks different. And I'm very passionate about rustic furniture. Something that helped me get forward after I built this table. My neighbor was a beekeeper, and one day he asked me, can I just help him unload his truck? So I went over and I'm unloading his truck with him, and there was an old beehive full of rusty pieces of metal. And I dug around in this box and I found a specialty tool, an antique tool called a draw knife, all covered in rust, sitting in this box. And I was just stunned, because I'd never seen one in Israel. I'd only ever seen them in books, and I'd seen them in the UK, but not here. And so I pulled it out of the box and I'm like, what are you doing with this? He said, well, somebody gave it me. They said, maybe it's good to clean the wax off the bee screens. And I'm like, well, does it do the job? He's like, no, it's terrible. Do you want it? And that really set the ball rolling then, because this tool makes rustic carpentry so much easier. And all sorts of other tools continued to come to me this way. I was like a magnet for antique tools at that time. I was so passionate about the rustic woodworking. All sorts of tools and even heavy machinery came my way for nothing. It was quite amazing.
Mm-hmm. How does this tool make it better? You said this tool's good. You said this tool is good for rustic furniture. How does that work?
Do you want me to show you the tool?
No. Do not move, please. Just describe it. Describe it.
It's like a big knife, but it's got a handle on both ends, bent
Okay.
around at 90 degrees. So now you can draw the knife towards you, you can pull it
Okay.
and take off shavings from a log. You need to hold the log. For this, you need a special workbench, but never mind. It's called a shaving
Wow.
horse. So I built a shaving horse, and once you've got a shaving horse and a draw knife, then you can take big shavings off the log, and you can shape the end of the log into a tenon, which is a male joint, and you can drill a hole in the other side of a log, and this piece will fit in there, and everything joins together like Lego.
Wow. Okay.
What's your favorite part of woodwork? Like gluing, drilling, the finishing off of a stool, anything. What is it? What's the thing that you really enjoy most, and why?
Giving it to the client, and they have a big smile on their face, and they give me the money. That's my favorite part, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I finished it. I'm satisfied with that. I said I've done a great job. Now, if the client's happy, I'm even happier. And if they pay me, well, I'm absolutely over the moon. I mean,
Of course.
what can be better? Getting paid to do what you love to do.
What
Yeah.
about the creative process, the action, the as it's happening?
Well, I love it all. From the beginning, when I start to make a sketch on a piece of paper of how this thing's going to look, to going and choosing the sticks and choosing the wood, then marking it, measuring it, cutting it up. I like all of it. It's all enthralling to me. Like each stick is different. The grain in each stick is different. Each piece of wood looks different. It's all unique, and it's new. Every time I do it, it's something new, and no two pieces are ever alike, even if they're the same measurements and everything. Every stick has got a different bend, a different shape. The grain is different in every piece of wood. I really enjoy the whole process from beginning to end.
Where did you actually grow up? You said
Southwest Wales,
Southwest
Pembrokeshire.
Wales. Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Is there a difference between how carpentry is done there and how it's done in Israel?
Well, seeing as I left when I was about 16 and went traveling, I don't really have too much experience of what's going on there. But I would say there's a different aesthetic. There's a very old tradition of carpentry in the UK. So a lot of things are taken for granted in the UK, that this is the way to do it and this is the way it should look, because everyone grew up looking at traditionally built furniture. It's all around you. You go to the bank, or you just the counter in a shop. It might have been there for 300 years, and the display cabinet in the chemist. It's all got this this look of properly done about it or something, and it's lasted for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And I think growing up seeing all this stuff makes a big influence on how I read books of all English carpenters and studied carpentry from a traditional viewpoint. So like there's carpenters in Israel come to me to do, let's say, legs for a table on a lathe, round legs, because my eye gives it this authentic traditional look. And someone who perhaps didn't grow up with that influence, it's much harder for him to recreate that. And that's what they tell me. They say, we want you to do it because it looks proper. We're like trying to make a piece of old farmhouse furniture. There's plenty of guys in Tel Aviv with computer-controlled lathes, and they can turn them out, hundreds of legs a day, but it doesn't look the same. It doesn't have the soul. It doesn't have the hand touch to it.
Is there anything in Israel that the lack of carpentry tradition is actually an assistance?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, with modern carpentry, it's more technical. There's a lot of hardware involved and a lot of computers and saws and high-tech stuff. And the Israelis know how to do business in that realm. They can turn out stuff fast, and it can be quality stuff, yeah? But it's a different kind of carpentry. It's like modern carpentry, like I say, with a lot of hardware and stuff. So So yeah, I think the Israelis grasp that much easier than the British, for example, where the British do tend to be stuck in their ways, like, you know, their motor just disappeared because of that. Whereas here, everybody moved very fast with all the technology here, and there's not many carpenters left doing traditional work here. And there have been some amazing carpenters in Israel, and there still are. And I think there's more and more amazing carpenters actually now. There's like, what's the word, a renaissance of hand woodworking and solid wood furniture. And a lot of Israelis have gone abroad and studied, and there's great schools in Israel today as well. So I think there is a revival of all of this, and there's some really amazing carpenters. But they're more influenced by American carpentry, which is also great.
What do you think is the reason that people are going back to the old way of doing things?
It's very, very rewarding, and you feel like you did something at the end of the day. I think a lot of young men that come, you know, that have come through my school, and young guys that I've met, you know, they've left school, they've done the army, they've gone to university, they've learned some business or whatever, and they're just, I don't want to do that. It doesn't interest me. That doesn't fulfill me in any way. And they started, maybe made a small piece of furniture at home, hung a shelf, and say, wow, this is really fulfilling. I like this. And they want more of it. And I think also social media's got a large role to play in it. I mean, on my feed's just full of woodwork, but anybody that's slightly interested in woodwork is going to start getting lots and lots of videos coming his way, which, if you're in any way creative, I think they're going to have some kind of impact on you.
Yeah.
What kind of things? Yeah,
I was going to say it's the upside of the algorithm.
What do you mean?
Yeah. It's like the high tech is actually taking people back to low tech. It's nice.
And what do you think is I mean, I understand that in your school, you actually, obviously, you teach people and you have groups. And I'm wondering, what's the reason that people come to learn how to make things from wood? Is it spiritually uplifting? People with the post-trauma come to connect to themselves? Or is it just people who want to save money on furniture, so they want to learn how to do it, etc.?
Well, I would say all of the above, really. The saving money making furniture bit's not really very relevant, because it takes a long time to build furniture. So if you want a cheap furniture, go to IKEA or something. But the spiritually fulfilling, definitely. I have students of all walks of life. I mean, there's young guys just out of the army, and there's people that are retired, and there's housewives, but I think like if we want to give it an umbrella that would cover everybody, I think it's the fulfillment from this, and the peace and the quiet it gives you when you're absorbed in your project. Even if there's like 5 or 6 other people here and there's machines running, you're not aware of it all. It all disappears, and you're absorbed in your project, and it's step by step as well. You know, at the moment you're focused on cutting this piece of wood straight. You're focused on cutting this hole with a chisel. And this gives people a lot of peace and quiet. I mean, many of my students say to me, you know, oh, I'd much rather pay for this than pay for a psychologist. Like, I stopped going to my psychologist. I'll come here once a week instead. This is much better.
It's like you have to meditate.
Yeah. It's a bit. I like to surf as well, and it's very similar to me as surfing. You know, when I'm on a wave, I can only think about surfing this wave. I can't start worrying about the bank or, you know, other problems you might have in life. You're just doing that, and it's the same with woodworking. When I'm cutting a mortise or whatever, I have to just be concentrated on this. I can't. Everything else goes away. Everything drops away. I'm just focused on this, and hours fly by. And you know, sometimes I'll be working until 12 o'clock at night, And I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? You know, I'm just like totally absorbed and thoroughly enjoying myself.
What kind of things do people typically create in your workshops?
Mainly furniture.
Specific? Can you be more specific?
Yeah. Chairs, tables, beds, sideboards, sideboards, consulate. But then there's people doing a lot of art here as well. There's,
Oh, wow. Like what?
Well, there's one lady, she walks in the countryside and on the beach, and she picks up all little pieces of weathered wood off the floor. It might be a natural stick, it might be a piece of some furniture that got washed down a river and into the sea and up onto the beach. It could be all sorts of strange little shapes of wood. And then she makes them into statues, generally human-like, but not necessarily. Some of them are aliens, some of them are, but they're all assembled out of all these little pieces of wood. Sometimes we'll join things. She'll use old pieces of rusty metal or an old door lock or all sorts of other things to assemble it all together. And for her, the process gives this creature, this character, gives it life. And she starts to say, okay, he's happy, he's sad, he's injured, he's got mental illness, he's a cripple, as they grow, they develop their character, and then they have a name, and they have a kind of a function, you know. Like one of them, I remember she called him, he was like the ruler of the world or something, or on top of the world or something like this. But like they all got names. So like she's always building all of these things.
Yeah. Do you have another example of another character? Like, oh, there's this other guy and you won't believe what he does. Tell us.
I can't remember them all, I'll be honest with you. Like, we go through so many.
So if you don't remember, what about if you could maybe tell us about the course itself? So what to expect? Okay, let's talk about Dave the teacher. Because being a master carpenter is one thing, but you know, you need to have a way of teaching and a talent for teaching and patience, I guess, and a way to explain things. So what makes you a good teacher for woodwork?
Well, I think it's a quality I have. I didn't develop it. Well, I did develop it, but it wasn't difficult. When I was younger, I also was I was a sailing teacher, I was a windsurfing teacher, I was a surfing teacher, I was a diving instructor. And I went through all courses and certification and whatever for all these things. But that's when I understood that I'm a teacher. Like, one of my qualities is I'm a teacher. I really enjoy teaching, and whatever it was that I taught, my students learned and they liked it and it was fun. And so after working in carpentry for a few years and being all alone in my workshop with boards of wood and just occasionally meeting clients, I realized that I was missing the people. I was missing the interaction with people, and I really needed some feedback. I needed people. So I started teaching on a Friday morning. I put flyers around the village, and I had 5 pensioners turn up. And it's quite funny. The first meeting, I said to them, well, okay, listen, this is an experiment, and I don't have any insurance. So if you don't like that, now's the time to leave. Please don't sue me if you stay. We're going to do it for a month. And if you enjoy it and want to continue, I'm going to get insurance, because I needed to buy insurance for a year, and I wasn't going to buy insurance for a year if it wasn't going to work. And then what? It started like that.
A month later, so obviously they said, yeah, we wanted to continue, and more people joined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
And
well, then it just grew over the years. Then I was always taking commissions, taking jobs, and slowly, the teaching was getting half and half. You know, I was half of the time making furniture and half of the time teaching. And the minute it went over half and half that I was teaching more, I understood that I really couldn't take on projects anymore. I couldn't take on a whole villa and do all the furniture in the villa anymore. I just didn't have the time. The client couldn't possibly wait 2 years for me to finish their villa. So I started like taking just very specific jobs. You know, if somebody wanted a very nice coffee table or a special dining table or a special bed or furniture like this. So I just took those type of jobs. And today I rarely have time to take on jobs. I mean,
I see.
If one of my old clients calls me and they insist, I'll do it. Like,
Okay.
I love doing it, but finding the time to do it today is...
Of course. So let's say that we come to a course of yours, Simkin and I. So I understand what it's like 5 people, 6 people there, and is everyone working on the same project, or they all have a different project? And if they have a different project, then how do you teach them? Do you teach them all together, or you just keep jumping from one person to the other and you give them full attention and teach them individually while they're together in the workshop? How does it actually work?
Okay, so the basic course, like a beginner course, everybody's going to do the same projects. Like there's some theory, but most of it's hands-on. And the first project they do is a piece of rustic furniture. They make a stool, mainly with hand tools, and everybody going, you know, they're going at their own pace, but they generally finish within a few hours of one another, this first project. Excuse me. And so the first project takes like 4 meetings of 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then there's a bit more theory. And then we move on to a more traditional piece of furniture, which is a small side table, where they start to learn how to use the heavy machinery to plane the wood, to straighten the wood, to saw the wood on the machinery. And then there's joinery, which is like the main thing. It's, you know, you've got to do good joinery to make furniture last. So they start off with hand tools, cutting joinery by hand with chisels and hand saws and planes. And then again, we'll move on to some machinery, some electrical hand tools and big machines, and cut the rest of the joinery. And then there's parts of it that as we continue through that project, they're using also hand tools and also power tools. And that finishes after 8 more meetings. So like a total of 12 meetings. They'll have completed 2 projects, and they're all working at about the same pace. Some people are going faster, some people are going slower. If somebody doesn't finish the project, they usually sign on for a couple more lessons to finish the project. Some people finish faster than everybody else, so I'll find them a small project, something else to work on until the end of the course. And then people that have completed a course like this, they can come then to the workshop. Now they know how to operate the machinery, they know how to plan, they know how to use the hand tools. They usually sit with me privately for an hour, and we'll decide what their next project is. And this is very individual. It depends on the person. Some people want to continue doing rustic furniture. Somebody else wants to know how to work in the more industrial style, and he'll build something out of sandwich and screws. Whereas all the other projects until now, there wasn't a screw, it was all traditional joinery. So then we'll plan their project. It might be a combination of all 3 as well. And then they can come to a group of 5 or 6 people that are usually coming every week for months or years. I mean, I have students here coming once a week for 15 years in a row. 10 years, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. It's not unusual. There's some very steady people. And like I said, for them, this is their psychologist.
Yeah. Do you think you're still improving? Are you getting better and better all the time?
Oh, definitely. That's amazing. One of the great things about teaching is that my students all come with challenges all the time. Like they'll come and say, I want to build that. And I'm like, okay, well, I've never built that before. Let's learn how to do it and do it together. And this is great. I mean, if everybody was building the same thing again and again, I'd go crazy. so that they come with challenges.
Is there an example? Think about an example of that. He said somebody came and said, I want to build that or this. And you were like, okay, let's learn how to build this. So what is this?
Okay, so,
and how do you learn, how do you personally learn to build the thing that you'd never built in your life?
Okay, so for example, one lady, she wanted to build a rocking chair for her father, her elderly father. And so she looked on the internet and she said, I want to build like this rocking chair. So this rocking chair that she chose was by a very famous Lebanese American carpenter called Sam Malouf. And Sam Malouf invented his own type of joinery.
Wow.
And he's quite controversial, but unfortunately he passed away. But his furniture sitting in museums in America and sitting in the White House, one of his rocking chairs. And it's very well respected and very controversial because he also puts screws inside. He uses joinery, but with screws. And like the traditional carpenters are all, oh, you can't use screws. But he proved them all wrong and became a millionaire selling his furniture. And his furniture's lasting for decades and decades so far, so it's okay. So he did some very special, complicated, exposed joinery that you can see the joinery. It's not like hidden, which it is in traditional furniture. Generally, you don't see the joinery. And this is very complicated joinery. And on top of that, it's a lot of laminations, which means there's lots of curves and shapes in the wood. So you have to cut the wood into very, very thin slices and then make templates of the shape, let's say, of the back leg of the chair, which is curved. So then you have to make a template of this shape and then lay up all these thin pieces and glue them and clamp them to get all the shapes. So how did I learn, you ask me?
Yes, exactly.
So I went and did all my homework and read everything I could find about Sam Malouf, watched every video of anybody copying Sam Malouf, watched videos from the 80s of Sam Malouf talking about how he did it, how he got there, all the mistakes he made on the way. It was really interesting. Like he started building them in some little apartment in New York, and he was working as an accountant or something. I don't remember. But so I love it. I'll go and do all my research. I'll do all my homework. And then I'll even come to the workshop before class and practice this joinery on some scrap wood, figure out which tooling I need. It's machine work, this was particularly. So which tooling I need, if I need some tooling that I don't have, how can I do it with the tooling that I do have? How maybe we can make it a little less complicated for the student if it's maybe a bit too advanced, how to perhaps bring it a bit down to their level so they're not going to get frustrated by choosing too complicated a product. Yeah. So yeah, I love the learning process. I love all that. I mean, reading.
Did she get? Did she succeed in building the?
Yeah. Well, why I remembered her, she was my student when my daughter was born, and my daughter's now 13, and she stayed for a couple of years, maybe 4 years or something like this. She's a very busy woman. She's a manager of a massive hospital in Tel Aviv. Like she manages the whole hospital. And then she didn't come for like 10 years, and she turned up last week. That's why I remember her. Wow. And so she turned up last week, and she said, "Oh, how's the kids and this?" I said, "Oh, my daughter's 13 now." And she's like, I remember when she was born.
Wow.
And then she said, "Oh, look at the rocking chair." Pulled out a telephone, shows me a picture of the rocking chair with her father sitting in the rocking chair. And she says, "It hasn't changed."
Amazing.
She said, it's just like the day I built it.
Yes. What about the workshop?
Me, this is incredibly rewarding.
Of course. And the workshop itself, I mean, I understand that you have different machines in there, and many of them are really antique, old machines that should be really in a museum. But in your workshop, they're used every single day by your different students. So describe a few of those machines. What would we see if we enter your workshop right now?
Well, I mean, the centerpiece for me out of all the interesting machinery, it's a planer jointer, which is a machine that straightens the wood and then makes it parallel thickness. So you can straighten, like when you buy wood in the woodyard, it's not straight. It just comes off a sawmill.
Yeah.
So this machine will straighten the board and then make it even thickness all the way through. So this machine, it was actually destined for a museum. I was looking for a new machine. I'd got a very old, small French machine, which just wasn't big enough for my needs. So I went to one of the tool dealers in Nazareth, actually, and I said, you know, what secondhand machinery have you got? And he's showing me all these different machines, and they're all no, they're all too old, not good enough, no, don't. And then I saw this machine, and I'm like, I want that. And he said, no, we just restored this machine to put it in the showroom as a museum piece to show people, because he's now importing new machinery, to show people, you know, where we were and where we've come to. And I'm like, that's a crime. It's a crime. How can you put this machine in a showroom and it not working? So he wouldn't sell it to me. So I went home, and then I went back there, and I drove him nuts until he sold me this machine. Now, I got the machine, it's all working, everything's great. And another old machine I had, I needed a technician to do something that I couldn't do, which was changing the tires on a bandsaw. So there's an old guy in Tel Aviv that used to have a factory making woodwork machine in Israel when there was boycotts and you couldn't import anything into Israel way back. So this old guy had a factory, and he was building woodwork machines, and so I called him because it was a very old machine. And he came and he walked into my workshop, and he nearly fell over. It's like, I built that. He built all these machines that I've been collecting over the years. So he starts to tell me the story about this planer jointer. And he said, like, it's a huge cast iron bodied machine. So he says, you know where I got the castings done? And I'm like, no, where did you get such big castings done in Israel? You know, there's no foundries here. So there is a foundry, and it's the Industrial Military Company of Israel. I can't remember what they're called, that they build tanks and stuff. So they did in the castings. And then he says, you see this gearbox that controls the speed of the feed of the machine? I'm like, yeah. He says, that came off the starter motor of an American tank that had to be changed after so many hours work in the field, so that there wouldn't be, so they could always start the tank. So the gearbox is off an old tank. The casting was done in the military. And this machine is amazing. It's about 65 years old, and it just works perfect. And what I like about these machines are that it's all done with very simple, basic engineering. Like, it's like an old car, you know, like people that collect old cars, they can fix them because you go to a machinist, you get a lathe or whatever, and you can fix these old cars because there's nothing too complicated. It's all logical, basic engineering. So that's why I like these old machines, because I can fix them. If I buy a 20-year-old machine, I can't fix it. I need to buy new parts. You can't reproduce the parts easily, and it's illogical, most of this stuff as well, and they break after. So all of my machinery is like decades and decades old, and my bandsaw is so old that in its original form it didn't have an electric motor. It was run on leather belts to a steam engine, and somebody added the electric motor as an afterthought. I have an Italian planer that I bought not long ago in the Shtachim, actually.
In the territories?
Yeah.
Like in Gaza?
Territories to buy it, yeah. And
wow.
That's Italian from the 50s. It's a big cast iron Italian machine, and that I had to totally rebuild everything there. So that's also a lot of fun to me. I love all the old machinery. I love building it and taking it apart and fixing it. And this morning I just dropped off an electric motor at the guy who rewinds electric motors, because one of the old machines, after 30 odd years, the motor gave up, but you know, that's fine.
Okay, maybe we should go more personal, Simkin. Like an Englishman living in Israel, Dave Harrison. Perhaps we can ask him questions. How did he even learn Hebrew? How does he communicate with people? How does he find the mentality in Israel? Does he miss Wales? Any ideas, Simkin?
Oh, it sounds like your Hebrew is better than mine, David.
No. My Hebrew is atrocious, but people can understand me.
What has Israel done for you?
Oh, it's done a lot. Yeah, I'm only grateful to Israel. I mean, I'm so happy I came here. I was a wayward teenager. And if I'd have stayed in the UK, I would have all been in prison or a drug addict or a homeless or something.
Really?
Yeah, I'm so happy I got out of the UK. I mean, I was on a bad track in the UK.
So how did this country help you?
They accept you as you are. They accept you as you are. Like, you know, you say, "Oh, I'm a carpenter." They say, "Okay, so build me a table." You build them a crap table. They're going to wrap it around your head and not pay you and send you packing. But they give you the opportunity to make the table. They don't say, "Oh, where's your certification?" Or, you know, maybe they'll ask if you got any photographs of previous work. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I have. But they accept you as you are.
Face value.
That's what I really, really liked about Israel. Like, I could reinvent myself. I could forget my past. I could start again and say, I actually was too embarrassed to say I was a carpenter for a long time. Like, people started saying I'm a carpenter before I said I was a carpenter. Like, I was working in my back garden.
Why were you embarrassed?
Because I'm British and I felt I should have certification and qualifications.
Wow.
And, you know, I'd been working in carpentry shops around the world as well when I was traveling, working on boats and fixing boats in boatyards, and even just working as a waiter, fixing the table or whatever. I'd been doing carpentry since I was a kid, but I hadn't considered myself a carpenter until I needed to make a living out of it. And then I did a few things. You know, somebody ordered a dining table from me. It was one of my first orders. And they were so delighted with their dining table, they gave me referrals and I got more customers, and people are saying I'm a carpenter. So I said, okay, I'll accept it, you know, I'm a carpenter.
Nowadays, it's decided by the number of subscribers you have on YouTube now.
And you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. 40,000.
Wow.
It's not bad going.
And what are the most successful?
I didn't upload a video for 4 years though, Mikey. So
what kind of videos do you have there? I mean, what kind of videos on your channel? Perhaps we'll have a link to it. And well, I mean, you show people how to build things or what?
Yeah, like my main focus, like when I started doing these workshops and teaching people, it came quite clear to me that not everybody was as fortunate as I was as a child, that was allowed to go in the shed and just take tools and do what he wanted. And I always saw my father fixing and making stuff around the house, and like knocking in a nail was something I probably did, you know, 3 years old or something. So I was very, very fortunate. And I see that not everybody's had this kind of a background, you know, they honestly had never knocked in a nail before. And so my focus in my YouTube videos is for total beginners that have no experience, but they've got this itch. They want to build something, they want to create, they want to do something. So my videos are really aimed at total beginners with very limited tools. You know, a handsaw and a hammer, and that's it.
But you said it's been 4 years since you uploaded your last video. Why?
Why? Because when I moved to the premises I'm in now, I moved here like 3 years ago nearly. So it's 3 years since I uploaded a video. When I moved here, first of all, I was like full on. It was just towards the end of Corona. I moved into Corona, which was also challenging. But then when I got here, there were many, many people that couldn't go abroad. They couldn't go to work. They'd got time and money on their hands. And I was fully booked with woodworking courses, which was absolutely awesome. So I was working full out, and I never had a chance to make a video. And then when I did pick up my head and say, oh God, I really need to make some YouTube videos because I really enjoy it. It's teaching to like hundreds of thousands of people, not just 6 people. So it's really, really rewarding. I had noise issues.
I see.
in this
Okay,
building.
so hopefully
right?
you will
my
get back
neighbor makes
to it.
a lot of noise. So now look, I just bought some new microphones.
Oh yeah, very good.
So hopefully there shouldn't be too much background noise. It's got noise counts and
Yeah.
stuff.
So we should be
And
we
there
should
are-
be
there
seeing
is
your
noise.
videos soon. We'll be seeing
I
your
hope
new
so.
videos.
Yeah, I hope so.
Uh-huh. Okay. Simkin?
What's your message for the world at this very moment?
Don't look at the media. Go in your shed, take out a saw and build something, and stop watching the news. Take care of your family, take care of the people close to you. Do things that make you happy.
Amazing.
Sounds like a good message.
So we're going to put all your details underneath the video in the description, so people living in Israel can contact you and come to your courses. And obviously it's all Hebrew speakers. It's not a problem. Hebrew, English, all the same.
All the same.
Well, can you speak Welsh?
No. No Welsh.
Okay.
Very good. So it's been a lovely interview, I believe, Mr. Simkin
thank you
and
very
Harrison.
much.
And thank you for coming. And Simkin, thank you for the co-hosting. And Dave, good luck with everything. And thank you to our lovely viewers. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.